Welcome. My name is Natasha Sherman, and I am your host. So in today's world, being gay is different probably than it was a decade ago. And it's easy to assume that it's a lot easier now. And yet I suspect that for a large part of the population, it is not as easy as we'd like to think it is. There are stories of people throwing their kids out on the street, and although that's not the majority of them, the fact that it still exists shows that it's an issue. My guest today is Jack. Jack actually was my coach in a leadership training program decades ago. And I know him to be someone who is intelligent, thoughtful, curious, empowering, supportive, and a key player in the world of transformation. And yet when he thought his son was gay, he suddenly found himself confronted with some issues. And as he says, the issues weren't with his son, they were with him. And so he went to work on transforming all of that. And he's here today to talk about it because he thinks it might be useful for other parents who are in the same place. Welcome, Jack.
Welcome, Natasha. It's good to see you again.
It's great to see you. How come you haven't gotten older and I have?
They have this product called Just for Men, you know what I mean?
I guess that's it. Yeah. So let's talk about this. So, as I said, you're a leader in transformation. And was it a shock to you that it kind of percolated some issues?
It was a real shock for me.
Yeah.
When my wife at the time told me that, my son was gay, she said, but you can't tell him that I told you. That was their bond, okay, which I totally respect. And as, enlightened or transformed as I thought I was, it still hit me like a ton of bricks because it was not something I ever really even considered.
Right.
And
how old was he when she told you?
I would say about 15.
Okay. And how old is he now?
21.
Okay.
So it was a shock, to say the least. Mostly because, I had all these expectations of, from the moment he was born or before he was even born, what it would look like to have him, have a traditional marriage and a daughter-in-law and have kids and grandchildren and all those things, later on in life. And also what it would be like for him.
Right.
What I thought it would be like for him being in life as a teenager, going to the prom, dating, going to college, dating, having that whole life, And it really hit me, and like I was sharing with you, what I had to deal with it was my unfulfilled expectations.
Right.
Of what I was expecting. And like you said, maybe it's gotten easier out there in the general population about what it is to be gay. It's acceptance. You see it more on, mainstream media and stuff like that. However, when it's your child, it's your child. And I don't care how mainstream accepted out there in the media, which I'm glad,
Right.
And it's relatively at some, like you said, hopefully easier for gay men and women, boys and girls that, come out in the world. It's still probably just as hard for them to tell their parents because they don't know any other way.
Yeah.
You can't tell them it's easier, and you can't tell the parents it's easier.
Yeah.
Because everyone's just got their unique experience of whatever they're dealing with at the time. So, I could tell that maybe with his friends and his mother, it wasn't an issue. But for him to come out to me, as however accepted it was out in the world, he still had to deal with me. And I still had to deal with me. And that's really where, this story takes off.
So what did you do?
Well, first, what I did was nothing, but be angry. That's what I first did.
Yes.
And I didn't know what to do. And, but I certainly knew that I didn't want to stay in that place.
Right.
I certainly knew that we had to have a conversation about it. He had to be able to be free, because I could tell it was definitely going to be bothering him.
Yes.
If now we had some distance between us, where before we never did. We're best buddies. And I had some distance with him because now I knew something about him that I wasn't saying. But I wasn't willing to have this conversation with him until I knew I could be at a place where I was okay with it. And I wasn't. So, you know, what I did was I actually came down here to Princeton. You know, I found that there was I know LGB.
P flag.
Okay, workshops. Mostly I think it was set up for, a lot of it was for parents. And I went and, you know, listened to the speaker. And there happened to be another father there and mother. And he was really angry. And while I wasn't maybe as outly overt like him, it was there. But one thing I got to say was, the good news was I said, no, I'm not going to be that father. I'm not going to be that guy. And I had to go to work on it. Well, how am I going to get from being that to being the person I said I was going to be and who I wanted to be and what I was committed to? So, like I said, I was in a leadership training, and I called every gay man that I knew. And I interviewed them. I asked them, what was it like for you when you told your father? And I listened to the stories. Not many of them were good.
Wow.
I can't say any single one of them was
outstanding,
happy about it. And some of them got, you know, really messed up by what their father said. I got to put you in therapy. You'll get over it. We'll pray together. You know, it's a phase, various forms that still had a lot of like residual impact on them.
Sure, this is your dad.
Yeah, right. And I had talked to some other parents I knew whose kids came out to them to get what it was like for them. So I tried to do as much as possible. But ultimately it came down to who I was going to be about it and what I had to deal with. And Natasha, it was like a death experience at the time. You know, there was the denial. You know, there was the bargaining. There, you know, the anger. I wish I knew all the steps, but I used to know them. And then, you know, finally came like acceptance.
Yes.
But it really was, I was committed to him more than me. Because when I really got to my bones that this was my unfulfilled expectation, what I expected it to look like had nothing to do with him. He didn't have those expectations. He was just being him. And really one of the best conversations I had with one of my friends who came out, he said, is your son like pretending he's not gay? Is he like a big macho football player that, you know, says something about, you know, gay people and what? I go, no, he's authentic. He loves handbags and he works at the supermarket. The women come through his line so they can show him the handbag and he knows what each one of them costs and where to get them. He's so authentically himself and he's so free. I didn't want to squash that.
I want to interrupt you here because I think what you said was really, really like the whole thing. I was more committed to him than to what I was experiencing.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, that's it, is staying committed to him.
And that's really the key. And if I could say anything, whether it's to dads, because I'm a dad, maybe some moms are like this too, or anyone else, I think that was the whole key that made me search to make me keep looking to finally say, okay, what do I need to give up here? You know, how do I transform this? And it wasn't there in the beginning.
Right.
So I'm not saying that this just happened overnight. But when I got really, really interested in how much I love him, how much I've always loved him, and that I was more committed to his freedom and his joy in life than my own expectation for what? So that's really why I went to work on taking all the, you know, these courses and interviewing all these people, and until I could finally get to a place where I could authentically have a conversation with him where it really was that it meant nothing to me. And
how long did that take?
I would say that probably took, you know, longer. It seemed like forever, but it was probably 3 to 6 months.
That's not a very long time.
Well, it is when every time you see your son. Yeah, it is when there's some distance between you.
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
And your son. I mean,
it's suddenly like there's an alien in the room, you know, there's a third party in the room.
Yeah, you know, on one way, but there's certainly when there was no distance between the two of us. I don't mean physically, but in our relationship, there was nothing hidden, nothing I couldn't say to him. And now there was.
Yeah.
I couldn't fully express my love for him, and I'm sure he couldn't to me either. Mm-hmm. And I was more committed to that he could be free and he could be in the world, and he didn't have this story of, oh my God, I never told my father, what's that like? And he had to, you know, hide around me, because now he's got to do things that are like a compromise to his integrity. You know, he's not telling me things.
Yes.
That I'm sure he wants to tell me.
So were there any, so clearly it's a process and it's like death, or, you know.
For me it was.
Yes. Okay.
That's what it was for me.
So
it was like the death of an expectation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see that it's a process. Were there significant things that people said or shared with you that made a difference?
Yeah, it certainly was. Listening to, you know, one gentleman telling me that his father said, well, we're going to get you therapy. Like, really?
You need to be fixed.
Yeah, do I want my son to be thinking that?
Yeah.
That was one. The other one was, and it was from the same gentleman too, was, is your son pretending to not be gay? Mm. Like, that was significant. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no. Mm-hmm. He's more free. He's freed up about it. It's me.
Yeah.
And he's not freed up around me because of me.
That's powerful.
And when I was the limiting factor in his freedom, then what happened, I was looking for an open. Now, once I got to a place where I now knew it was me, mm-hmm. and I was more committed to him than to me, now it was just, okay, how do I actually create the opening for the conversation? And I was at a friend's house, and I was sharing with him that I was going through a divorce, and he turned to my son and he said, well, what do you think about that? And he said, it was kind of obvious, you know, it was kind of going that way. I go, okay. So when we got home that night, I said, you know how you had that conversation, you know, with Greg about, you know, kind of obvious, Mommy and Dad were getting divorced. I said, there's something I just got to ask you. It's kind of obvious to me. I said, are you gay? And he just like, I think he just felt this relief, you know. He kind of rolled his eyes and he said, oh, Dad, he said, isn't it, I didn't tell you, because isn't it obvious? And then I said, listen, buddy. I said, let me tell you something. And this is the part I had to authentically get to. I said, the wall was blue. I had eggs for breakfast, and you're gay. That's what it means to me. I said, I love you. I've always loved you from before you were even born, and always will. And this will not get in the way. And we hugged, okay? And then you could just feel the, tension went out of the air. And then he rolled his eyes and goes, Dad, I can't help you with your wardrobe. I am the gay guy. But in that instant, it was gone, the distance.
Wow.
Between the two of us. In that one conversation, it was gone. You could feel the earth like shift almost. And then he was free to have his boyfriend come over, who's an awesome kid. And we did things together. We'd go side by side, and we'd go on trips. We did things together. And now they live together in college. They're in college and, just doing extremely well and happy as could be. He's fully self-expressed. Doesn't have to hide anything around me. He is who he is. Before it's like, he could be who he could be in the world, but then around me, he had to hide something. And just wasn't committed to that.
Yeah. It would be nice if there was a formula, and clearly there is no formula, but there's something to be learned from what you're sharing. But I just wanted to share a couple of things, and then I have some more questions for you. So I watched this, I think it was a documentary of parents talking about finding out it's easy to judge the non-extreme reactions of parents, those parents who ultimately embrace their children as they were. But as one parent said, and it's what you said, there's a visceral difference when it comes home. I don't know if you can understand it. You have to live it and experience it. Another parent said, and I want to ask you about this, the first thought was, my child is a minority now, and it puts them in danger. Does that ever enter your mind?
No, it never did enter my mind. I never had my son occur to me like a minority.
Yeah.
But
out in the world, but that's great that you haven't.
It never dawned on me. Each of my children are unique in who they are. I don't judge them against society.
Right.
Okay, so I never looked at where they were in society. I never looked if they were in the minority or the majority.
Yeah,
I never thought of it that way.
I guess one of the things that it's like statistically, I read was the LGBTQ community faces many forms of discrimination, including labeling, stereotyping, denial of opportunities or access, and even verbal, mental, and physical abuse. They are one of the most targeted communities by perpetrators of hate crimes in the country.
Well, that's why I'm doing this show.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I could, not that I could see myself targeting anybody, I'm not that, but I could see where people, get some form of, you're over there and I'm over here. Like, because of your sexuality, that you're actually different than me, like less human. Mm-hmm. And like you said, when it's your kid, you get, no, it's not. Mm-hmm. And it's really an educational process.
Yeah.
Now, 30, 40, 50 years ago, if you would have asked me this question before I was a parent or before I did some of the introspective work I've done on myself to actually get, I'm not over here and you're over there. We're all one.
Yeah.
And, if you want to talk to a bigger conversation of what's going on in the world today, I think this whole you're over there and I'm over here mentality has us in the divisive conversation about everything.
Yes.
That's going on in the world today.
I read this quote from a bishop. He says, the whole family comes out at the same time, and the family goes through a bereavement process. Some religious institutions see it as a sin, an aberration, an illness. He said, access to God and good is not exclusionary. Err on the side of putting more chairs at the table. And I think that's what, again, inviting people in, embracing, as opposed to they're them and we're us. And
yeah. I don't even have to agree with you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I'm not going to now be gay because
Right.
I've accepted that my son is gay.
Right.
But boy, is it a different world when I look at he's me, I'm him. Somehow he's got a different sexuality. So what?
Exactly. The wall is blue. I had eggs for breakfast.
Then you're
he's
gay.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And
It's only the meanings that we add to it.
yeah, what are you making that mean?
Yeah.
And I could add that to all these other things. I'm not really in the political conversation, but the midterms are tomorrow. And boy, there's people. Well, what are you making that mean? You're a Democrat, you're a Republican, or everything else in between. What are you making that mean? That I cannot now have my views and you can't have your views, and now we're gonna, have this discourse that's no longer, even civil.
Yeah.
What are you making?
We have to face off.
Listen, I'm all for having a debate and having
Yeah.
a great conversation, and you have your opinion and my opinion, and okay, so you're gay and you're straight. What does that mean?
Yeah. Years ago, I interviewed a gay guy who actually was, then later diagnosed with AIDS, and this was, maybe 15 years ago. And but I do remember asking him, how old were you when you realized you were gay? And he said, how old were you when you realized you were heterosexual? Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, good point. It just is. Yeah,
and it's great you brought that up, because what I always was led to believe, not that I studied it, but somewhere I absorbed this, that people or men, especially that were gay, something happened to them.
Yes.
They were molested by the Boy Scout leader or the priest or the babysitter or the this or the that, okay?
Yes, that there was a cause.
That there was a cause. Nothing ever happened to my son like that.
Yeah.
Nothing. That's just who he was and always was, and how that happens, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you said, how I woke up being heterosexual and he woke up being gay, I don't know how that happens.
So what would you say, so I'm a parent and I come to you and I say I'm grappling with this and I'm still angry. What would you say?
Well, I would say, first of all, allow yourself to be angry. Don't even make it wrong that you're angry, like you shouldn't be.
Right.
You have unfulfilled expectations. You expected life and your son or daughter to be a particular way. Who doesn't?
Yes.
And whenever we have unfulfilled expectations about anything, mm-hmm. you're going to be left in an upset. So actually embrace the upset, and then embrace it was your unfulfilled expectation.
That's the thing.
And what can you do with something that's yours? You know what I can do with something I own? Anything.
Yeah.
I own my car, I can sell it.
Yes.
I cannot take it into the shop. I can drive it off a cliff. I can give it away. I can do anything with something I own. So I would say, if you really own, it's your unfulfilled expectation, not your child's. They're doing what they're doing. That's not their expectation. Then you could actually start to get past it.
Yeah, and I think it's remembering, and again, it goes back to what you said before, remembering your commitment to your child, remembering your love for your child.
Yeah.
And kind of that's the overarching writing commitment, is to express your love and to get past. It's like you said, you ask yourself, what can I let go of? Well, letting go of those expectations, letting go of the judgment, letting go. But again, as you say, you have to embrace the feelings that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
before you can let them go. You have to own them.
You have to own them. You have to
Yeah.
really own them, and just get the impact of them. Like,
Yes.
what's the impact? What's it going to be like if I stay in this, the anger and the upset of this unfulfilled expectation? What's going to be the impact? I'm really going to have some distance between my son. I really am. And he is not going to be free.
Yes.
And so when I got way more committed, it's what you really see the impact. I mean, just plot it out. Because I can see how it's been going for the last 3 months. Okay, give it a year. How's it going to go? 2 years, 3 years.
He
5
can't
years.
bring his partners home. He can't talk to you about his feelings, about, his relationships.
And the gap gets wider and wider. Now they
Wider
go to
and wider.
college.
Yeah.
Now they get their own job. It's like, I don't need you. And there it goes. You'll get maybe a phone call once in a while and
Yeah.
a card or something like that. But the love and the commitment and, how it's always been will definitely be gone.
Yes. I promised you a 3-minute warning. It's actually a 1.5-minute warning.
All right. Well, can I say anything about where I got some of this
Yes.
training? So
Please.
I did this program from Landmark. It's called Landmark Education or Landmark Worldwide. They have an awesome program called the Landmark Forum.
Yes.
And then follow-on curriculum and seminars. And it was in that that work that I was actually able to turn around fast enough to see myself.
Yes.
So,
That's another, absolutely,
I
another
highly
resource.
recommend that as
Yes.
a resource to anybody who's, in life in general.
Yeah. The Landmark Forum.
The Landmark
Yeah.
Forum, you can find it online.
Yeah. Yeah. Jack, thank you so much. I think it's really powerful because your reaction wasn't an extreme one. It wasn't like I'm throwing my kids out in the street or whatever. It's just like, as I said, someone who's in the world of transformation, and there's still stuff to deal with. And there's access to resources and to going through to get to the other side.
Right. If you're really committed to it, you got to
Yeah.
be more committed to them, having love present, having no distance, than my righteousness
Yes.
and my unfulfilled expectations. And anything's possible.
Yep. Really awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Natasha Sherman. Thank you for joining us.